The fourth hard thing that we have to do to have more love in our lives, and perhaps the hardest thing, is to promise to never engage or commit to anything that's not love. And the three hard things we talked about before this, all of those hard things are what makes this hard thing so hard to do. Okay? So a way to just check up on yourself to see if those three hard things that I talked about in the last three videos are making your life impossible, is to just use this one as the final testing ground and say, okay, I promise I'm never going to commit or engage in anything that's not love. Not just commit, but also engage. Because charitable love is not something you commit to. Hard love is not something you commit to. It's something you engage with. Okay? Committable, sustainable love is the only love you commit to. And of course, that's what most of us are interested in, but it's important, if you really want to have love in your life, to appreciate the charitable love and to look for that, and to appreciate the hard love and to look for that. Because those things are going to come. They're going to be part of your life. And you want to embrace them as what they actually are. All right, so the more we can only engage and commit in what's love, the better our lives are going to be ultimately. Okay? Because the more engaged and committed we're going to be with things that are useful to us and that are useful to other people. You know, it's a really funny thing that animals, you can take a snake for instance, and pretty much all of his moments are engaged in what's useful to him. Humans are the only species that spends a tremendous amount of time engaging and committing to things that aren't useful, that aren't love. Okay? And I don't really think it's possible for a human, unless they're enlightened, to not engage in some things that are not love. It's really just about how, what's our what's it called, our efficiency. Are we at 20% efficient? So 20% of what we do, we're engaging with love and committing to love. So there's a forward momentum because it's useful, because it moves us forward. And then 80% is sending us backwards, is not useful, is a waste of energy. Or are we running 70% efficiency? You know, it's like everyone can become more engaged with useful stuff. And that's ultimately what is going to end up giving us better lives. Especially if our relationships, because they have so much impact on us, are engagements and commitments that are based on love. Okay? And it's so hard to commit and to make this promise. It's easy to make it, but it's very hard to keep this promise. Because there's forces inside of ourselves that aren't interested in what's useful, that aren't interested in feeling good, that are addicted to certain emotional states that aren't even emotional states that we think we want. We have a huge chemical factory within our system, okay, of different hormones. And just like you can go on the streets and you can say, oh, I want a hit of cocaine, I want some meth, I want some heroin, I want some opium. You have all these choices of drugs you can go have. And once you start taking those drugs, you get addicted. And different people are addicted to different drugs. One person's a meth addict, another one's an opium addict. And that's the most important thing every day of their lives, is to get that addiction, to get that impact of that drug on their system. Okay? And that's not love, because it's not useful to them. Well, our system has all kinds of hormones that are just as tantalizing to our system, just as addictive to our system as our street drugs. And so we spend a lot of time seeking experiences that stimulate a hormonal flow. Okay? And that is not necessarily a useful experience. So we can get addicted to our own hormones in ways that, where we create situations where we experience a hormone rush. And then when everything is good, things don't feel right, and we have to create a situation to stimulate that hormone rush again and get our fix. So it's really hard to choose what's love because we're all addicts, whether we're street addicts and taking heroin. We have our own addictions to our own chemicals, our own hormones, our own chemical system. So it's so hard to promise to only engage in what's love because you basically have to break free of chemical attachments and addictions within your own system. Okay, if your body's used to a certain hormone of fear, you're always going to create situations where you feel scared and insecure. And those situations aren't love. And just like the junkie wants to go get his fix more than anything else, there's a part of us that wants our endocrine fix more than anything else. So we're all recovering addicts. Okay, we're all recovering addicts of having certain rushes of hormones through our system. So we really have to break free from the addictive state, just like a drug addict does. What does a drug addict do? He promises he's going to make healthy choices, even though he wants to take drugs. We'll do the same thing. We have to promise ourselves to make healthy choices, even though we want the unhealthy choice that's going to flow us with frustration, flow us with fear, whatever. It's going to give us that drug surge from our own systems. Now, as we have healthy experiences, we get addicted to healthier experiences. It gets easier over time. It's like changing your diet. If you grew up, living on McDonald's food and soda, then there's no part of your body that wants to eat lettuce. It just doesn't want it. It just wants that stuff. It's become an addiction. But when you eat really good foods and somebody says, okay, we're just going to go to McDonald's for 2 days, at first it might be, really, I get to go to McDonald's? And it's like, wow. But after 2 days, you're craving salad, like, your mouth watering when you see grass. You're just craving salad. So there's a point where it's really hard to do what's useful for us. But once we get in the habit of it, our whole system goes, oh yeah, this is nice. Because see, when you do things that are useful, you get hormones coming into your system. It creates a hormonal change. Your body has an experience, and it'll become attached to that experience. So basically, our endocrine system is supporting our habitual way of being on a chemical basis. So when we want to change a habit and stop engaging in habits that cause us to feel, isolated, and the fear that comes with isolation and who knows what else, when we replace that addiction with an addiction of, wow, my life is going forward, this is useful, it's going good. Okay? So literally we're working against some serious chemical influences. You have to be very committed. I promise to never. And your heart will say, but. And just like a drug addict is, but I need my fix. But it'll be okay this time. It's like, no, you have to be strong and say, is this an act of love? Am I engaging in love here, and what type? And am I engaging in committable love or not? Okay? So it's not easy. Okay? What's really, really important as you promise to make a commitment to love is that as part of that commitment, you're promising to commit to what is love. You're not promising to commit to anything specific. You're not promising to commit to love as this kind of job, to love as this kind of city, as this country, as this person, as anything. You're making a commitment to an experience of love. And we all have to work towards that experience, doing the things I've talked about, plus doing lots of things I haven't even talked about. And as we work toward the experience of love, we have to let God decide how the details of that manifestation, the details of that experience. So when you have an experience of love, it's going to manifest as a person, as a job, as a passion, as a hobby, as something, even as a spiritual path. What the detail is irrelevant. It does not matter to our souls at all what the details are. It only matters that it's having that experience. Okay? So we have to work towards the experiences that are healthy for us and leave the details up to life, leave the details up to God. So what that means is you need to commit to love, and you commit to a person as an extension of that love. You don't commit to a person and then try to make it into love. You commit to having love. And then the person who manifests as a result of that, they're an extension of your commitment to love. That's a really important thing to understand. Because see, what happens is, the things I talked about in the previous videos, that, like for instance, the desire to love a parent who can never be loved, and then to love someone who has similar qualities, will make us want, it has to be this person, and this person has to be the one, I have to have love with this person. And it's that kind of stuff that causes us to engage in what's not love the most. It has to be this person because they got a hook on me, and the hook was literally, the worm was stuck on the hook when I was 3 or 4, when my parents were raising me. And then we want to swallow that hook, line, and sinker, and we get so stuck on it. It has to be this person, this person, this person. And it doesn't. It just has to be an experience of love. So work towards the experience, not towards a person. Let God decide who the person is who you're going to connect that experience to. This is literally what happens. The whole world manifests according to the 5 elements. The 4th element, as they manifest, is the water element. And the water element's job is to connect things. Isn't that what we want? We want the connection that's called love. It brings things together. It glues things together. Connects things. The element after that is the actual physical manifestation. So you see, it's the last thing in the chain of everything we have to do. The critical thing is that connection. And then along with that connection comes the detail of that connection. But see, if you focus on the detail and say it has to be this person, I have to live in this city, I have to have this kind of job, you define the details. Before you've experienced the connection, you're going backwards. Life doesn't work that way. You'll be stuck with no connection, with no love, if you decide on the details first. Okay? This is what an obsession is. An unhealthy obsession is when you decide on the details first, and you ignore whether there's a connection of love there or not. Okay? So we have to commit to love, and we commit to a person as an extension of that first commitment. All right? The other really important thing is don't commit to potential. You can work towards furthering potential, and the best relationship needs to work towards greater potential. But we only can commit to what is actually existing now. Okay? This happens on many subtle levels. Let's just take a real obvious level. Okay? Let's say you fall in love with someone in another country. And you have the material need of just having some affection. Okay? Just to have, not to be all alone, to have someone to cook with, someone to sit down with at the end of the day, someone to cuddle with, just some healthy affection. You have this physical need. You can't commit to the person in another country for that, because they're not useful in that respect. There's no way they can be useful to you in that respect. So you can't commit to them because of something that's not there. Now, So you'd be foolish to make a material commitment to that person, because materially, when you're in different countries, what can you really do on a material level, right? But you can say, well, one day maybe, your country will be allowed to travel to my country, and my country can travel to your country. And so there's the potential for material commitment. Okay, so that's real obvious, right? But on an emotional level, this same thing happens. And I wanted to give this obvious, it makes obvious, so easy to see example, because the same thing happens on an emotional level. And that's where it's not so clear to see this is happening. Okay? You have your emotional needs. People who provide those emotional needs are going to be emotionally useful to you. People have emotional needs. People you supply those emotional needs to, you're going to be useful to them. Okay? But when we fall in love, we automatically think that out of that feeling we call love, that pull, that emotional pull, we think that, so of course, all my emotional needs are automatically going to be met, and I could commit to this person right now. Just because I feel this yearning and this pull and this love for the person, so I can commit to them on an emotional level. No, you can't. You can't commit to them on an emotional level until you know that you're useful to them emotionally, and they're useful to you emotionally, and that it feels good for both of you. Okay? It's the same thing. How can you commit to someone on a physical level if they're not even physically present? Okay? Sure, on a physical level you can say, I won't hug anyone else, but that's not commitment. That's not useful. That's not love. You know, commitment is not based on what you won't do with everyone else. It's based on what you will do with each other. So with a person who lives in another country and you make a material commitment, I won't hug anyone else. I won't have affection with anyone else. So what? The commitment needs to be, I will hug you every day. I will have affection with you every day, or every week, or whatever. But when two people live in different countries, they can't make any commitment to do anything physical on a regular basis at all. So the commitment it's a positive thing. It's what we will do. That's commitment. Commitment is not what you won't do with the rest of the world. Commitment, the foundation of commitment is what you will do with each other. Okay? So, if on an emotional level, the same thing is happening. If a person is emotionally useful to you and you're emotionally useful to them, and you commit to, wow, we can do this for each other, we can commit to being this way with each other. We're emotionally, the commitment is viable. We can commit to it. Every day we can want to do this. Okay? But if that's not there, and one person's not emotionally useful to the other, and the other one's not emotionally to the other, but they have that in-love feeling, and they say, okay, I'm in love with you, so I'm committing to you emotionally, I'm not going to have anything to do with anyone else emotionally, that's not an emotional commitment. Because you're not doing it with each other. Whether you do it or don't do it with someone else is really a secondary matter. It's not the primary thing. But a lot of people think that's what commitment is. That commitment means everyone else doesn't exist. That's not what commitment is. Commitment is we work. We offer each other something useful on an emotional level. That's why we commit. That's what commitment is, to continue offering that. Commitment is not to discontinue it with everyone else on earth. Okay? But people think it is. So people walking around in these emotional relationships where they're not really that emotionally useful to each other, and they think they're emotionally committed because they're not talking to anyone else. And all they are is emotionally starving and not getting love on an emotional level, not getting emotional usefulness. So, remember, commitment is a positive action of two people saying, we have something valuable, we're useful to each other, and it feels good. So yeah, do you want to do it every day? Hell yeah. Do you want to do it every day? Hell yeah, let's do it every day. That's commitment. Okay? It's not a negative thing. And when you do it every day with that person, you don't have to say, and I won't do it with anyone else. Because you won't be able to do it with anyone else because you'll be doing it every day with that person. And so the negative commitment of I won't do it with everyone else happens because you are doing it with someone it works with. Okay? So that's what committing is you commit to what works. You commit to what love is. Okay? Committing is not committing to, yeah, I'll be unhappy if you'll be unhappy. Even though there's a whole world out there, let's both be unhappy. Okay? That's not commitment. So, we have to promise to commit to what is love. Don't commit to potential, as I mentioned. So in this emotional situation, yes, the person has the potential. Yes, you have potential to one day be able to connect and be useful to each other emotionally. Great. Work towards that. Work towards achieving that potential. Work towards the realization of that potential. What if you never achieve it? It's fine if you never achieve it with that person. Because as you're working on that potential, you'll be becoming a better person. And as they're working on achieving that potential, they'll become a better person. So even if you're not able to achieve that together, it's not a waste. It's not a waste of energy. It's not a waste of attempt. But it needs to be understood that we can't commit on this level because we don't have it. But we can continue to work towards achieving a potential. Because really everyone has potential, right? We all have greater potential with everyone on earth. We all have more potential with everyone on earth than we're experiencing currently. Even if you have a great relationship and everything works, you have more potential with that person than you're experiencing now. And you're going to achieve that potential by growing. If you're in a relationship where there's some really wrong things, you have more potential in that. Okay, everything has greater potential. There's no end to the limits of potential. So we can always work towards that potential. But you can't commit to it until the potential is realized. So if on any level, materially, emotionally, or spiritually, your relationship is not useful, if it's not a committable, sustainable relationship, you have to promise yourself not to commit to it. But decide, I look at this and is there potential here? Yeah, there's potential here. Are you open to seeing that potential unfold? Yeah, maybe I am. All right, let's see if the potential unfolds. And if it unfolds, and on whatever level things weren't useful, they become love, at that point, that's the time to make a commitment. Okay? So be aware of what levels are suitable for commitment because they're working, they're useful to each other, and what levels things are not, committable, sustainable. And don't commit to those. Okay? If you analyze your relationships in accordance with what I talked about a couple videos ago, you'll see that you'll have some material needs met, and then you'll have they're materially useful in some ways, but they're not materially useful in other ways. Okay, and then on an emotional level, they'll be emotionally useful in some ways, and they won't be emotionally useful in other ways. And on a spiritual level, they'll be useful in some ways and not other ways you want. And then you have to look at that and say, okay, this is where they're useful, this is where I need them to be useful, and they're not. And you have to decide, okay, is it big enough to commit to? Is there enough usefulness across the board to say, okay, I'll commit to this, and I'll make this my primary focus of developing greater potential, and therefore, achieving greater potential, and once achieved, being able to have a commitment that is more sustainable, that covers more elements of my material, emotional, and spiritual needs. Okay? But if there are some glaringly big holes, you won't be able to keep the commitment. Okay? Now, different levels are easier to commit to than others, even if they have holes. Like materially, because men and women, and of course in gay relationships, men and men, woman and woman, everyone has the capacity to earn and provide for their livelihood really well. Okay? So, no one one's not allowed to have a job anymore. Like it used to be, no, if you're a woman, you were simply not allowed to have a job. Think of that. But now, no one's not allowed to have a job. So, there could be a lot of things where people are not materially useful to each other. And it could still not be a point of, oh, I can't commit. Okay? As long as the person is physically present, for a lot of people, that's materially all the usefulness they really, really need to be able to make a commitment on the material level. Okay? There's other people that might be living far apart. But maybe one person provides, somehow there's a financial arrangement that makes people go, okay, I can still commit on a material level even though you're not physically present. Now, that's not going to happen usually in a romantic relationship, but it does happen, okay? But not very commonly. So however it works, the material level can have some, yeah, I could use this and I'm not getting it, but you can usually still commit to it because it's a level where it's so easy for each person these days to manage on their own. And it's not, other than physical present, the other stuff doesn't create as many pulls. But it does serve as bonding cement. Because like I said, the material usefulness flows into the emotional realm. And so it can support where the bond's really happening on the emotional level. But you don't have to have a perfect, oh yeah, they're totally useful for me materially so I can commit. You can say, okay, I can commit to this. And the beautiful thing about the material plane, it's under your control. That realm is like, that's the realm our minds rule. The mind rules the material world. And it can say, yeah, I've decided I can commit to this even though I would like it if he had more money. I'd like it if she, whatever. I can still commit on a material level. I can make that decision on the material level. And you'll be able to commit to it and stick to it. Emotional level is not like that at all. Because see, the material level works in accordance of the dictate of your mind. The emotional level does not work in accordance with the dictate of your mind at all. And the more we try to make the emotional level work under the dictates of our mind, the more ill we become. It's just that simple. The emotional level does not work according to the dictates of anyone's mind. Doesn't matter what you want yourself to feel. Doesn't matter what your partner wants you to feel. Doesn't matter what God wants you to feel. Your emotions are going to feel what they're feeling. Okay? They're not controllable. So, all what your emotions do, they simply respond. That's all our emotions do. They respond. Something happens and they say, I feel this way. I've had an emotional response. Something else happens, they go, I'm having this emotional response. Okay? Now, whatever the emotional response is, there's basically two polarities of any emotional response. It's the emotional response always has a yes or no attached to it. A step back or step forward. And you can watch this. If you're talking to someone and you're getting a positive emotional response, the people are moving closer to each other. Maybe just a couple inches, a couple millimeters, right? If people talk together have a negative emotional response, they're just backing up a little bit. It's like voomp, voomp. Every emotional response has a voomp or thump, closer or further apart. And we only can make commitments based on our emotional responses, not what we want our emotions to do. And our emotions have their own mind. Okay, they're going to respond in according to how they're experiencing the environment, which means how they're experiencing the people in the environment. And they'll either go, somehow this makes me feel good, or somehow this makes me feel bad. I don't even understand why. Okay? So you need to observe your emotions. What are your emotions doing? Where are they drawing you? What are they repelling you from? In what situations do they draw you to this person? In which situations do they repel you from that person? You have to just observe that. And let your emotions be viewable. Start observing and watch what your emotions are telling you. What they're telling you is, the person's useful to me on this level, the person's not useful to me on that level. That's what they're telling you. Okay? And you have to pay attention to that. And if your emotions go, they're useful to me on this level and draws you to the person, and they're useful to me on this level and they draw you to that person, and they're useful to me on this level and they draw me to that person, that means your emotions are saying, this is a sustainable, committable thing. But if your emotions are withdrawing on this level and withdrawing on this emotional level, and this emotional experience also withdraws you, your emotions are saying, this is not emotionally useful for me. The beautiful thing about the emotions, they're coming further apart, they're coming together and moving away from things, is how they tell you if something is emotionally committable. Our mind can't say, oh yeah, this is emotionally committable. We have to study our emotion. We not study, we have to observe our feelings, observe our emotions to see if our emotions are committing or not. And we have no say over what they're going to do. We don't get to tell them, you better commit or else. They're going to do it if they feel what they need to feel. And what emotions need to feel is they need to feel accepted, they need to feel seen, they need to feel respected, and they need to feel cherished. When emotions feel that, they're like, that's useful to me. Okay, that's what heals all of us on an emotional level. When emotions feel judgment, when emotions feel anger, when emotions feel frustration, when emotions feel blame, they're like, that's not useful to me. Okay? And they withdraw. So we have to recognize that when we're looking at our relationships and our life and our work, everything we do, we have to make a choice if we're going to commit on an emotional level. And the only way we can do that is if we observe what our emotions are doing. So we go to work and our emotions going, yay, let's go to work. Our emotions going, hell no, let's not go to work. Let's take the right turn to the beach. You have to watch them and see what your emotions can really do. Your emotions are this delicate beauty sitting in your passenger seat. And you're driving the car around the world, going where you have to go. And you have to pay attention and watch them. And if you turn a right turn and they're like, okay, then you straighten up the car and you don't turn that way. And if you start going left and the emotions go, oh, and they're like, oh, okay, then you turn the left and you take the left. You don't turn the corner and the emotions are like, eek, and you go, hey, shut up on the passenger seat over there, we're turning right. You don't do that. I mean, you can do it, we do it, but it's not how we need to take care of our emotions. If we do that, those emotions are going to freak out, and they're going to keep freaking out, and they're going to keep freaking out, and they're going to keep freaking out, and one day they're going to blow all over the place. Okay? And they'll blow over the place in a way like God knows how. One example of this was a guy had a relationship with a girl, and it was kind of the girl was a little harsh. She was like very serious, very methodical, very mental, not really just that receptive of a person. And she had very strong ideas that, oh, you can't do this isn't right, things like that. So not a terribly bad person, not a scary monster, but definitely sort of rigid, okay? The minute you're with a rigid person, your emotions kind of are always going to get like a eek, eek, eek feeling. There's just no avoiding it around rigid people, okay? Rigid people don't give enough room for people's emotions to be, feeling really good usually. So for 3 years, he tried having a relationship with her. And she would expect him to do things that really hurt him emotionally, that were just against who he was emotionally, like things with his family and stuff, and which were his other important social needs. And then, he was in a university, and he was sort of working with some of the newer students in the university, and there was one student there, and then without even knowing why, he just they had this little connection with this one girl who was the opposite, totally sweet, totally demure, totally accepting. He just grabbed the girl and kissed her. I mean, he never thought about it. He didn't say, one day I'm going to kiss this girl. His emotion just said, kiss this girl. They just said, screw it, we're sick of this, we're feeling, yay, this would feel good, and he grabbed her and he kissed her. And that's how his relationship ended. That's how he realized he couldn't make an emotional commitment to that girl, because his feelings were always going away, stepping back, stepping back, stepping back, okay, instead of lunging forward, lunging forward. So we really have to observe our emotions and respect them. And they won't make sense. They won't line up with the material love or necessarily even with the spiritual love. On a spiritual love basis, people could be really, really useful to each other, but they might not be useful to each other at all on an emotional level. And what we tend to do, we tend to try to tell our emotions it's emotional committable because it's working on the material level, there's love on the material level. He's so handsome, she's so attractive, she's so beautiful, that's what we say. He's got so much money, he's an alpha, and he's got so much status, and oh, look at her, she's a goddess. When she walks, it's like everyone gets whiplash, she's so beautiful. We want to commit emotionally because there's these material goods there. Or we'll go, oh, they're really good for my spiritual life, and we meditate every day. It's like, great, that's really nice. And then we say, so yeah, emotionally it's going to work out. The emotions, they're not so obvious. It's not like there's this obvious picture on an emotional level. And especially on the material level, when we see on the material level that, ooh, that's a nice catch for me. Like I said, material matter bleeds into the emotional level. It prepares us for an emotional relationship with people. But it does not mean that people are going to be useful to each other on an emotional level. But people will make a commitment on an emotional level by observing the material facts. So often. You can't make a commitment on the emotional level without observing what your emotional body is doing. Okay? So, observe your emotional body before you commit on an emotional level to see what are your emotions doing. Are they saying it's useful and leading you in, or it's useless and leading you out? Okay? Okay, and what if it's not? What if on the material level, you're like, it's so committable, and even on the spiritual level, there's some good stuff here, it's committable and sustainable, but your emotions, 49%, your emotions more than half the time are going, maybe not, stepping back. Then you have to observe, okay, why is that? Is there greater emotional potential here? And if so, is it possible to work towards that greater emotional potential? And if it is possible to work, which simply means both people are willing to do the emotional work they need to achieve greater emotional, to realize more potential. Once more potential is realized, they can say, okay, now we can make a commitment on the emotional level because I'm observing that my emotions are saying yes. Yes, that's useful to me. That feels good to me. Okay? The interesting thing about the emotional level is that what's useful to the emotional level is pretty much just one thing. It feels good. I feel accepted. I feel cared for. It's all about it feeling good. The emotions are the part of us that need to be babied and felt good. Okay? Sometimes with hard love, then the emotions have to get pushed. All right, do this or else. And then the person does it, and they're like, I feel so good that I did that. Okay? And the end result of all emotional love is, I feel good. Okay? Emotional, committable, sustainable love, though, is love that makes you feel good because it feels good. Not love that makes you feel good because it's hard love. Okay? Although every relationship has an element of hard love. The foundation needs to just be, it feels good to be around this person. And therefore my emotions are going, I want to go to that person. And that's how you have to make your emotional commitments. You can't force them with your mind. You can't decide you're going to feel a certain way because this part's so good. This emotional part can be totally invisible if you don't look for it. To a lot of people, so many people have had to learn to shove their emotions aside because of their circumstances in life, that they don't recognize that this is even happening on an emotional level. They're not even paying attention to their feelings. Their feelings are saying, go away, and they're like, oh, but I have to. The emotion saying, go away, and the feelings, and their mind says, but you have to, and drags them right back in it. Okay? So, and it even happens the other way. Their emotions are saying this person, and then they're like, ugh, no, 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 and they run. That happens too. So we have to learn to start, in this society, the modern world, really humanity as a whole is really in the need of learning to observe their emotions and to recognize, what are my feelings communicating to me? When our emotions lean towards a person, they're communicating to ourselves, this person is good for you. When our emotions lean back from a person, it's communicating, this person is not good for you. Okay? Every emotion you have is communicating something to you about yourself that you might not recognize. And so you need to observe it, see what it's saying, and listen to the message. Okay? But we can never say, oh, that's stupid, don't feel that way, I should be feeling better. My husband's a great guy, he's the mayor, he supports me, he takes care of the kids. But why are your emotions like this? Why are you withdrawing emotionally? Don't try to rationalize your feelings. Otherwise, you're not using this amazing communication system that you have been given. Okay? Now, lots of times what happens is, in a relationship, you get to a point where you realize it's not working. On one level that I really need it to work, it's not working. What do? Okay, you love that person, you've been having a commitment, but it really hasn't been committable. You've been sustaining a relationship with them, but it really hasn't been sustainable. What do at that point? That's the hard crux, So, at that point, what I wrote down here is you have to, again, it all starts with communication. Okay? So you say, I want you more than any other. So you tell the person, I really, really want you, and that'll happen. You may just really, really want this person that things aren't working with. Especially if there's a mirror of your parent involved. Oh, you're going to really, really want that person when it doesn't work, okay? So you tell them, I want you more than any other, but I've committed to follow what love is. I hope it's you, but if following love does not lead me to you, I will go where it does lead me. That's what you have to do. That's how you have to live your life. You have to say, I want you more than anything else. Want is not love. You're allowed to want anything. Okay, you can want everybody if you want. You can want all 7 billion people. That's no problem. You're allowed to want whatever you want. But a desire is not meant to be something that governs our choices. What we want doesn't mean we dictate our whole lives based on that want. Okay? Want just shows us, I want this. Okay? So you're allowed to want that person who hurts you. You're allowed to want that person you can't have a healthy relationship with after 5 years. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. But you have to follow what love is. And yes, you're going to want following love to lead you to what you want. But it might not. Remember, find the love and then see what the details are, who the person is of that love. Don't find the want and say, this is what I want to love, and it has to be this, and then fight and kill yourself for it. You say, I want love. What is love in my life? Oh, that's where it's to be found. And go there. Okay? So remember, the want is just a detail. I want this person, this job, that house, this city. It's a detail. You want the experience of love. And yes, you'll want the detail, and it's acceptable to want the detail of this city and to want the detail of that person. But don't make your choice on that want. Make your choice on where love is actually found. Make your choice on where you have having committable, sustainable, two-way street usefulness to each other so that your life moves forward. You have a foundation to build and do the great things you want to achieve and build. To have the experiences you want to have, whether that's traveling, climbing mountains, or playing video games, whatever it is. Because you'll have more of the experiences you want if you're on a foundation of working love, right? Without that foundation, it's really hard. And again, the big thing is when we want somebody, we're stepping on really dangerous ground when we want someone. The minute we say, I want a person, instead of I want an experience of love in my life, you're setting yourself up on very dangerous ground. Okay? So always try to replace that with, I want an experience of love. Not, I want this. Okay? This person, this thing. And because we will want that person, we have to promise to not commit to anything that's not love. And we have to not be fooled into thinking that just because we want it, it's going to be emotionally useful for you. Wow, the things I could tell you I want, which I know would ruin my life emotionally. All of us, right? If we could write down a list of so many things, oh, I want that, but it would ruin me this way. I want that, and it would screw this up in my life. You know, you could think of all the things you want that would kill you. Like, I would love to have a chocolate cake right now, you know? Wouldn't be able to function tomorrow, but I would love to have a chocolate cake right now. As in, I want to have a chocolate cake. I've been craving sugar since the end of this eclipse. But it's not going to be love, right? So don't think that what you want is what's going to be good for you. Also, don't think that potential means you're ever going to reap the potential. And what I mean by that, don't think that because a person has potential for greater love, for greater committable love, that there's anything you can do to help them achieve that potential. Each of us achieving greater potential for love in any area of our life is based on us developing the commodities that are needed to have more love in that area. So developing more material commodities, developing more emotional commodities of love, care, and gentleness, things like that, and acceptance. Developing more spiritual commodities of recognizing your light more and being drawn to your light more than you are to all this craziness out around you. Okay? So don't think you can change a person. When I say work towards potential, I do not mean change the person. I mean, if that person is working on themselves to achieve a greater potential as a being, and you're working on yourself to create greater potential as a being, then yes, there will be greater room for commitment in your future. But that does not mean you can turn that person or change them into something that will give you more of what you need. You only commit to them on the level of how they're operating now, and recognize you have no power to change that at all. If they want to be able to be more useful to you in the future, it's their own work that's going to allow for that. Nothing else is going to do that. Okay? It's like, again, material examples are so clear, so easy to see. All right, this person doesn't help me materially at all, so I'm just so stressed materially. He gets $10 an hour, you know? And, you know, he's so cute, and I love him so much, but he gets $10 an hour, and I really want to have kids. And I just inherited $500,000. So let me see. I'll give him my $500,000 so that his financial potential is higher, and now I can marry him and have kids. Duh. Isn't that stupid? Who would do that? No one would do that, right? You can't take your money, give it to someone else, and say, now you have the potential you didn't have before. Now you've achieved the potential that you weren't reaching before. Because it was your money, and now that money is gone, and so it's like you're not anywhere better off than before. Okay? That's obvious, right? It would be like if the guy, you know, he's making $10 an hour, and you said, I want to marry you, you're so cute, and we'd have beautiful babies together, and I really want to have kids, and I need to start in the next 2 years, because I want at least 2, and I want to be done by the time I'm 36. And it's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to be staying at home enough as a mother with your financial potential. And he'll go, okay. And then he goes and he steals your money, and he comes back with $500,000, and he says, all right, now will you marry me? And she would say, hell no, right? But the same thing happens on an emotional level. But when it happens on an emotional level, we think it's going to work. It's obviously that's not going to work on a material level. But when it happens on an emotional level, we think it will work. Everyone has a greater potential to be happy. Everyone has a greater potential to be loving. Everyone has a greater potential to be caring. Everyone has a greater potential to speak kindly. Okay? So if you go to a person who doesn't speak kindly, who doesn't know how to find happiness, and you go, okay, I will give you kind words, and I will give you happiness, and I will stimulate you with joy, and I will give you pleasure that puts a smile on your face, and I'll say the words that make you feel good. That's the same as giving the poor guy $500,000 so that he's suitable to marry you. No, you don't do that. You say, you go show me that you can be a happy person. You go show me that you can speak nicely. You go show me that you can be caring, whatever it is, where they're lacking in emotional commodity. And then we can talk about having a commitment. But we don't do that. We're like, oh, I'll give him love, and I'll give him care, and I'll speak kindly to him. And he's still emotionally abusing the girl. Okay? So you cannot give a commodity you have to someone who doesn't have the commodity and expect to have a committable, sustainable relationship. You can give charitable love. You can give kind words. You can give care. You can give emotional support to someone who doesn't have that commodity. And that's charitable love. And you should give it. It's a beautiful thing to give. Give it out of your abundance of happiness. But don't expect that you're going to be able to have a committable relationship with that. Understand, if you're expecting a committable relationship with that person, you're going to end up hating them, you know. But if you recognize this is charitable love, you'll be able to give it to them for as long as they need until they develop their own emotional resources. And you won't be mad at them, and you won't get angry at them, and you won't get frustrated at them because you understand it's charitable love. So, it's really important to pay a lot of attention to the potential and how it's being developed. You can give charitable love to someone who can't provide something useful to you on material, emotional, or spiritual levels. Because you love them, okay, give the charitable love. But don't expect a possibility of a two-way, committable, sustainable love until they show up with the commodity. You tell them, I'm giving you charitable love. They're like, that's what I don't want that. You can say, well, you don't have to take it, but there's nothing wrong with taking it as you develop your own capacity on the material level, the emotional level, or the spiritual level, wherever it's lacking. Okay? And the person will go, why would you want to do that? It's like, because I love you. There's nothing wrong with giving charitable love. As I talked about in charitable love, the hard thing is not giving it. The hard thing about charitable love is receiving it. Because to receive charitable love, we have to acknowledge, shit, I don't have this. I'm a pauper. I'm a material pauper. I'm an emotional pauper. I'm a spiritual pauper. No one wants to recognize that they're impoverished on any level. You have to be humbled. Whenever you get charitable love, it's a humbling moment. You know? And we don't want to acknowledge where we're poor. But if we don't acknowledge where we're poor, how are we going to build up our bank account in that area? The first step is recognizing, shit, I'm broke on this level. I am impoverished on this level. And if I want to share this level with someone, I better get busy and get my bank account built up. And yeah, I'll take the charitable love, hell yeah. But one day, I'm going to have a full bank account, such a full bank account that I will share love on that level, and I will also have the abundance to give love without return on a charitable level to other people. But if you don't acknowledge the fact that, wow, I'm bankrupt, and you want to believe that you're materially capable, or you're emotionally capable, or you're spiritually capable, you're not going to get anywhere in life. Okay? You're just going to be an empty, arrogant person. Someone who thinks they got something when they got nothing. Right? Isn't that what arrogance is? I got something, but I really got nothing. So, these are the things to look for. So you recognize what type of love you're committing to. And what it is to work towards potential. And that means each people works towards greater potential in themselves. And they come together and say, all right, let's see now what happens. That's working towards potential. It's not giving your bank account to them. That's charitable love. And that's not something you can commit to. Okay? Okay, so this is a tough thing to do. To promise to never commit to anything or to never engage in anything that's not love. The reality is, everything you engage in can be an act of love. Everything. You just have to identify what love is actually here. You have to observe and say, what love is here? You have to question the other person and say, what love are you receiving? Right? And discover what love's there. And if it comes out to, wow, you're not useful to me at all. And you're like, wow, you're not useful to me at all either. It's like, wow, how are we going to love each other then? Well, the only useful thing we can do is say, see you later. And that's therefore separating is an act of love. This is what's useful, to not be together. Okay, on this level, whatever level it is, that's they're discussing. So everything that has happened in our life is an act of love. But do we recognize it as an act of love? That's the key. So really start looking. Everything you're doing, you're having conflict with someone, nothing's working. 6 months ago, nothing was working on any level. All right, there's only one useful love available to me. Love them and leave them. Okay? Let them take their time and energy to engage in the world where something can be useful to them. You take your time and energy to engage in the world where you can be useful to others and the world can be useful to you. That's useful. And if being together keeps the people from doing that, the only useful thing they can do is separate and stop trying to be unuseful to each other. Okay? And then you love a person, but they don't have a commodity for you. Okay, there's still love here. There's charitable love. And then maybe they're charitying love you this on the material level and you're charitably loving them on an emotional level. You can't commit to that. You can't commit to a material love with an emotional love. You only commit to material love with material love, emotional love to emotional love, and so on. Okay? But one person can be giving you financial charity, and you could be giving them emotional charity. And it could be a beautiful two-way street of charitable love. But you don't want to commit to that person. Okay? It won't work. So, it gets confusing, it gets complicated because we're operating on 3 levels with the person. So there's 6 things going on. There's so many, and out of those 6 things, there's so many variances that can happen, that you can have this thing but not this thing, and this thing is going this way, and this thing is going that way. Then we get all these different possibilities we get a very different experience of love with everyone we meet. And we have to observe, what is the experience of love? And if we leave it at that, we'll have love. But if we don't observe what the experience of love is, and we demand it to be this experience of love, we'll be missing that it's this and this experience of love. And so instead of having this or this experience of love, we're frustrated because it's not this experience of love. So with all your relationships, the first thing to do is to observe. Where is love here? That's what I'm going to engage in. Oh, I want this person, therefore I'm going to just ignore all my emotions and dive head in on the relationship? No. You observe your emotions. And observe if there's love, if there's useful emotional connection. You observe the material. Is there useful material connection? You observe the spiritual. You see if there's useful spiritual connection. And then you decide what kind of use. Is it hard love, charitable love, committable, sustainable love? So really, The reality is everything in your life is some kind of love. But it doesn't feel like it because you're expecting it to be a different kind of love than it is. So all you have to do to have more love in your life is to start observing and seeing what the love really is, instead of trying to make the love something that you want it to be, so you've got love, and then you're trying to force it into some other form of love, so it doesn't even feel like love anymore. That's what we're doing. Everything is already an act of love, but are you aware of it? So we need to develop this awareness. What act of love do I have with this person? And then recognize, oh wow, I have love with them, I have love with them, I have love with them, I have love with them. I'm having love with everybody. Okay? And yeah, a lot of it's hard love. So now I'm going to take it as hard love. You know, when my dad comes down on me, when my mom looks at me and I get that feeling of feeling like a wimp who can't do anything right, I'm going to say, screw it. I can do that. I'm going to rise above that. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do that. I'm going to go out and do it. And wow, I'm glad my parents pushed me into achieving something. You know, recognize the hard love where it comes. Okay? And if it's truly not useful, recognize, all right, get to love them and leave them. The most loving act is to be gone. Sometimes that's the most loving act. Do it as an act of love. It's not a termination. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your relationship. You'll be back. They'll be back. It's just for now, nothing useful can be done. It's time for the souls to part. And when the souls come back together to provide something useful, they'll come back together. Okay? That's how love them and leave them works. It might be permanent even in this lifetime, but it's never permanent. And even in this lifetime, so often it's not permanent. Okay? All right, enough said on that. I hope that helps people understand the subtleties of this promise we have to make to ourselves. Only engage in what is love and only commit to what is committable, sustainable love. And again, so much is already love. So we have to learn to see it. And then recognize, wow, I have a lot of love in my life. What can I do to get more of the kind I really want? The committable, sustainable love. The big thing you can do for that is recognizing the loves you have. So when you stop trying to force the love you have that's not committable and sustainable into something that is committable and sustainable, because you're not trying to force something that will never work, you have all this energy and time to find committable and sustainable love. But you'll never find committable and sustainable love if you are trying to force a different kind of love to be committable and sustainable love. Because you're wasting all your energy, you're not being efficient, right? One of the hard things is if you're not getting committable, sustainable love is going, oh shit, if I leave, I'm going to hurt them. How can I feel good about myself if I don't continue this facade of emotional committable love? Well, the way you do is you look at it and you go, well, you appreciate the love that's there. And you go, okay, I feel good because I'm giving them hard love. I feel good because I'm giving them charitable love. I feel good because I'm giving them love them and leave them love. I'm giving them love in a way that's useful. So I can feel good and stop trying to force something into sustainable, committable love. And now I have room for finding committable, sustainable love in my life. And the first step to that is, how can I improve my potential on the area where I was not getting committable and sustainable love? And you work on that. And maybe if that person does the same and works on their potential in that area, maybe all of a sudden you'll fit like a glove. It can happen. If not, you'll fit better with somebody else. And you'll have more love in your life. Okay? Enough said on that. We have one more video and that's it. Okay, thank you.